What I am saying is common sense. You're a visitor. You're not even an American. You're a foreign national. You're here because we gave you a visa to be here temporarily, and now you're out there defending and supporting Hamas, a terrorist organization?
Tonight, we break down a tense and highly controversial exchange on Capitol Hill, where questions of free speech, immigration authority, and national security collided in a moment that quickly ignited debate across the political spectrum. At the center of it, Senator Marco Rubio and Congresswoman Ilhan Omar, two powerful voices with sharply different views, clashing over visa policies, constitutional rights, and the limits of political expression in America. What started as a policy discussion quickly escalated into a deeper confrontation about who gets to speak, who gets to stay, and how far the government's authority really goes.
I mean, I'm not shocked because we know that the president oftentimes resorts to very bigoted, xenophobic, Islamophobic, racist rhetoric when he is trying to scapegoat and deflect from the actual failures that he has himself.
These Somalians have taken billions of dollars out of our country. They've taken billions and billions of dollars. They have a representative, Ilhan Omar. She should be thrown the hell out of our country. And most of those people, they have destroyed Minnesota.
It is important for us, one, to remind folks that we are Americans. We're not going anywhere, and we will continue to be in this country. And two, that Minnesotans are resilient, and we will continue to thrive.
What is the practical effect on the Somali community when the president says things like that?
I mean, it creates fear. And there is a possible danger that a lot of the people who follow the president have exhibited violence in many cases, especially in my case, whenever he has said something about me that is derogatory or says I'm a threat to the country. I've gotten death threats. There's so many people that have been incarcerated over the years that have been encouraged by the president's words. And so there is fear for Somalis, not just in Minnesota, but across the country, that some of these people might attack and harm them.
Where in the Constitution does it say that the Secretary of State can override the First Amendment protections of free speech? Is there a footnote that I missed somewhere?
There's no constitutional right to a student visa.
So, but is there a constitutional right? Does it say somewhere that Marco Rubio gets to determine which speech is appropriate and revoke student visas based on what you think constitutes free speech?
There's a statute that says the Secretary of State gets to determine whether someone is a threat. We deny visas every day all over the world.
Do you think that the Immigration and Nationality Act trumps the Constitution of the United States, Mr. Secretary?
Well, Congress can always change the law if you want, but I'm telling you,
Mr.
while I have the authority, I will continue to revoke the visas of these people that come here to tear this country apart.
You said that, Mr. Secretary. Let me reclaim my time because you are talking about revoking student visas based on what somebody says. And that means that you are trumping the legal Supreme Court, the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution of the United States.
No one has a right to a student visa.
Mr. Rubio, why did the administration need to use masked, armed, unidentified agents to whisk somebody off the street and deny her counsel for almost 24 hours after her arrest?
Well, you'll have to ask the agencies that did that work. I'm not responsible for that. I'm responsible for revoking the visas of these people that come to tear this country
Rubio,
apart.
I'm talking about this particular case where you revoked the student visa of a Turkish citizen who was a graduate student who wrote an op-ed that you didn't like. And suddenly you allowed for masked men to whisk her off the street. And you have multiple jobs, apparently. You're the national security advisor as well. So don't tell me it's not your job. Who snatches her off the street?
We don't do the snatching, but I can tell you we do the visa revocations.
Let me ask you about the national security consequences of people, masked men on the streets, snatching people off the streets. If these are legitimate law enforcement agents carrying out proper arrests, why are they hiding their identities?
Because then radical crazies will try to hurt them.
So you think that U.S. agents who have almost always gone without face coverings, even when they're arresting some of the country's most dangerous criminals, suddenly have so much to fear from a graduate student who wrote an op-ed that they need to be masked?
Again,
Is that
law
accurate?
student was a guest in the United States on a student visa. No one's entitled to a student visa.
So you
we deny
revoked her
visas every
student
day,
visa
and we will revoke and
based
continue
on
to
an
revoke
op-ed,
visas.
which trumps the supreme law of the land, which is the Constitution.
Someone's coming up
You
here to stir
clearly-
up problems on our campus. We're going to revoke their visa.
She didn't
They're
do any of
guests.
that. She wrote an op-ed.
Well,
She
that's
wrote
what
an
you
op-ed,
claim.
and I'm talking to you about her
That's her
particular
lawyer's
case.
claims and your
you
claims. Those are not the facts.
You reclaiming my time. You revoked her student visa
Yes,
because
proudly.
she wrote an op-ed.
And we'll do more. We're gonna do more of
I
them.
have another question for you. Would you revoke the visa of someone in the United States who published claims that, quote, Jews are an untrustworthy and dangerous group? Yes or no?
We will revoke the visa of anyone who's in this country as a guest
Are
who's
you
here to stir up
going to
trouble.
revoke the visa of somebody who made
Send me
that?
the case,
that,
I'll look at it.
that
I'm looking
statement?
to
Well,
get crazy people out of
actually,
our
it's not
country.
just about revoking.
Forward
You
to
actually,
revoking the
Secretary
visas of any
Rubio,
lunatics you
excuse
can
me,
identify.
reclaiming my time. Can you explain to me why the Trump administration granted refugee status to Charles Kleinhaus, the white Afrikaner who tweeted that exact statement that I just said? There's the case.
That's not a visa.
You granted that person
That's
to
a
enter
totally
the United
different process.
States.
That's someone that applied here through a totally different process.
Secretary Rubio,
student visas are a privilege.
Secretary
we deny
Rubio,
them all the time, and we'll
you
revoke them.
revoked
And
a visa based on an op-ed, and then you allowed for
Gentlelady's time
masked
has
men
expired.
to
That's your
snatch
claim. That's
somebody off
accurate. That's
the
your claim.
street.
Your
That's
time's
your
expired.
claim. That's your claim. That's not accurate.
Recognize.
This exchange highlights a fundamental tension in U.S. policy, the balance between national security authority and constitutional protections like free speech. On one hand, officials like Rubio argue that visas are a privilege, not a right, and that the government has broad authority under immigration law to deny or revoke them if someone is deemed a threat. On the other hand, critics, including Omar, raise concerns about whether speech alone, especially political expression, should ever be grounds for that kind of action. It also raises a deeper question. When does national security enforcement cross into limiting dissent or unpopular opinions? And who gets to decide where that line is drawn? For viewers watching this unfold, the real issue may not just be about one case, but about precedent. Should governments have the power to act on speech in this way, or does that risk undermining the very freedoms they claim to protect? Moments like this reflect just how intense and complex political debates have become, especially when they involve immigration, national identity, and the boundaries of free speech. For supporters of Rubio, this was a clear stance on national security and accountability. For supporters of Omar, it raised serious concerns about discrimination, free expression, and the potential misuse of government power. What's clear is that these debates are no longer confined to Congress. They shape public opinion, influence policy, and define how democratic values are interpreted in real time. So what do you think? Should visa status come with limits on speech? Or does that contradict the principles of free expression? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below. And if you want more fact-based breakdowns of the biggest political moments, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe.